Flavio Briatore's return to the Alpine F1 team 15 years after leaving when the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix scandal was exposed is the latest astounding decision by the beleaguered team. Tellingly, when this was announced by the team, it stated very clearly that Briatore was appointed as executive advisor by Renault Group CEO Luca Di Maio. But he's not only advising Di Maio. Team principal Bruno Famin confirmed he will work closely with Briatore, who is an advisor to the whole Alpine F1 organisation. Briatore's role is characterised as being focused on what are called top-level areas, so that includes driver decisions, assessing the current structure and advising on strategic matters. Briatore has never taken full responsibility or apologised for his part in the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix, where Nelson Piquet Jr deliberately crashed to cause a safety car that helped teammate Fernando Alonso to win. However, Briatore did accept his share of the blame, sort of. What's more, he's perfectly entitled to work in the motorsport world and F1. He's even been doing work with F1 and Stefano Domenicali. It would be no problem for Briatore to take a role with any of the other 9 teams, just as it was perfectly acceptable that Pat Symonds, another key player in Singapore 2008, went on to work for Marussia, Williams and F1 itself. But to return to the same team with the same majority owner in Renault is absurd. Famin has defended Renault's move, stating that he doesn't mind about the past, providing Briatore can help to make the team better. Our very own Ed Straw asked Famin directly what it says about the culture of the Alpine F1 team and Group Renault that past conduct of individuals is deemed irrelevant, providing they can bring performance. He dodged that specific question and again said Briatore is just another asset that Renault believes can make its team better. The irony is that everything Renault does seems to make the team worse. Briatore's appointment suggests the current structure needs to be assessed, but an honest assessment might turn the glare away from Enstone and Viry, where the cars and engines are produced by teams of very capable people, and lock on to those at the top of Renault, who expect success on the cheap and couldn't strategise their way out of an F1 paper bag. Some might ask why Briatore is free to work in F1 at all, given he was banned from all motorsport for life in 2009, but it's worth revisiting what happened after that to reverse the ban. Briatore was originally found guilty by the FIA World Motorsport Council in September 2009 after the Singapore 2008 case was tried. Its decision stated that Renault F1 team members Flavio Briatore, Pat Symonds and Nelson Piquet conspired to cause a deliberate crash. The FIA banned Briatore from all involvement in motorsport for life as a result, with Symonds hit with a 5-year ban. However, in January 2010, a French court declared that lifetime ban illegal. This was down to a number of failures in due process, including infringing Briatore's rights to conduct professional activity, the lack of a fair trial, and the use of an anonymous witness statement, as well as a lack of impartiality. It also concluded the judgment was contrived, which was based on quotes given to Abu Dhabi's The National from one of the judges, the head of the UAE's National Sporting Authority, a certain Mohammed bin Sulayem, now FIA president. The FIA appealed, but this was dropped in April 2010 after reaching an agreement with Briatore. The FIA also waived any right to bring further proceedings against Briatore. Flavio agreed he would not undertake any operational role in F1 before the end of 2012 as part of this deal. He also accepted to bear his share of responsibility, although that was simply because he was in charge when it happened, rather than an admission of personal guilt. But formally at least, his responsibility for Singapore 2008 is a matter of public record, making his return to the same team all the more controversial. But it says much about how much trouble Alpine is in that this isn't the only controversial topic swirling around. One of the reasons why Alpine's current struggles on and off track are so astounding is because it is a full works team, which often feels easy to forget. Yet there are persistent rumours in the F1 paddock that it's evaluating shutting down the F1 engine program at Viry for 2026 to downgrade to running a customer engine from another manufacturer. So how seriously are we taking this? Well, there's definitely some truth to it, and it's understood that potential alternative suppliers have been sounded out. Such a move would completely discredit Renault's F1 team, given running as an engine customer immediately sacrifices some performance potential. And you might be thinking this is just a hypothetical, what's the harm? But the very fact it's under consideration is extraordinary. You wouldn't catch Ferrari or Mercedes considering this, and Red Bull has created its own engine division from scratch for 2026 precisely because of the advantage of controlling its own destiny. Alpine F1 boss Famin had the chance to emphatically rule out the prospect of the team seeking an engine supply from another manufacturer during the Spanish Grand Prix weekend, and he very deliberately did not. Instead, he refused to comment when a short and sharp denial would have been easy to do. Pierre Gasly, who is yet to commit his future to Alpine beyond the end of 2024, was asked by our Ben Anderson at the Spanish Grand Prix how important Renault factory status is to him, and intriguingly, he said the team should have all options on the table in pursuit of greater performance. For a works team to consciously and deliberately downgrade itself to a customer team would be a dire indictment of its ability to produce a competitive engine and a spectacular act of self-destruction. It's the latest idea from De Maio to turn around a team that has lurched from crisis to crisis, from a ridiculous driver saga to an extreme turnover of senior staff, a colossal performance decline this year, and now the appointment of Briatore. Admittedly, the likeliest outcome is still that Renault decides to continue as is, with an engine designed and developed at the Viry-Châtillon facility. But to even explore the possibility of switching to another engine supplier reflects either a lack of confidence in the Alpine F1 project, a lack of commitment from Renault to back it to the level needed, or perhaps both. Nothing Renault is doing now contradicts the notion that it underestimates modern F1 and what it takes to succeed. It has always felt like a half-hearted works team since the entry was revived for 2016 with a takeover of the embattled Lotus team that Renault had only sold a few years earlier. Lotus's financial peril meant the team fell well behind the standards set by its former rivals, but Renault still publicly set out a 5-year plan to beat the likes of Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull at 85% of their size and resources. As for the engine program, Renault screwed up the start of the V6 turbo hybrid era so badly that its all-conquering customer Red Bull walked away. And a decade later, the Renault engine is again carrying a power deficit worth several tenths of a second in lap time. The F1 team itself at Enstone has made its own mistakes and has massively underachieved this year considering its resources, even if there are at least some signs of it turning this poor car around. While the team is in vastly better health than it was before Renault bought the cash-strapped organisation from Genii Capital at the end of 2015, it's going nowhere. Senior figures who have been ousted as part of De Maio's management musical chairs have indicated that the problems with the engine side of the organisation were never fully grasped by Renault. The fact there has been such an overhaul on the Enstone side indicated a lot of finger-pointing and possibly change for the sake of change. But now the entire engine division might be in the firing line, so you have to ask again if De Maio and Renault are serious about F1's success or if something else is going on. Renault and Alpine both emphatically deny that the team, valued by Forbes at $1.4 billion last year, is for sale. While it did sell 24% to a US investment consortium last year, Renault insists it wants to hold on to the rest. What's more, when Briatore's return to Alpine was announced to the workforce on the Thursday before the Spanish Grand Prix, they were emphatically promised the team is not for sale. But despite the fact that Briatore was a key architect of the team's rise to World Championship winning force both as Benetton in the mid-1990s and Renault in the mid-2000s, and there might be a desire to recreate that effect, there is a more obvious potential explanation for his return. The only possible logic for bringing in Briatore in this role is as the facilitator of a sale. You could disconnect the team from the Viry engine base, which has a role to play still in the wider Renault group. That leaves the F1 team as its own separate and easily sellable entity. You could even throw in your unconvincing Alpine car brand with it. Andretti is still pressing on with work on its 2026 car and is not interested in waiting for the vague promise that there might be a chance of applying to join the F1 grid in 2028. It could be an obvious candidate to buy the team, especially if the Alpine Renault engine program is shut down and there's a customer deal for the first couple of years while GM completes work on its planned Cadillac power unit. That could be the solution that works best for everyone, even though we understand Andretti has no interest in buying Alpine, at least for now. Who knows, maybe that's just a negotiating position. And it would put Renault out of its misery, given it seems odd to hang on to something it clearly only regards as a marketing asset rather than a serious operation. And even then, you have to wonder how much good is it doing for the Alpine brand and Renault itself to deliver such constant, conspicuous failure and then draw even more negative attention to it by appointing Briatore.